Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I'm your instructor, Sama Harakli, and I am just absolutely thrilled to welcome you to Day 16 of our internal auditing curriculum. If you've been following along with our lessons on governance, risk management, and internal controls, well, you already know how much I love bringing structure to complex processes. Today, we're setting the stage for a deep dive into literally one of the most crucial tools in any auditor's toolkit, the Risk Control Matrix, or RCM for short. So grab your notebooks, get dialed in, and let's master this thing together.
Okay, here's our game plan for today. First up, we'll look at what is an RCM. Then we'll cover the key components of an RCM. After that, we'll walk through a simple example, look at the benefits of using an RCM, and finally, wrap it all up with the key takeaway.
So what exactly is it? Well, the Risk Control Matrix, or RCM, is a key tool used by internal auditors to assess and document the risks and controls within an organization. It helps ensure effective risk management by identifying, evaluating, and monitoring key risks and the controls in place to mitigate them. Now, to put that into perspective, imagine a rapidly growing company, right? Departments are expanding, brand new software is rolling out, and hundreds of transactions are happening every single day. It is, frankly, pure organizational chaos, and without a structured way to track what could go wrong and what's keeping those errors in check, well, that chaos quickly turns into a massive liability. The RCM is essentially the document that brings absolute order to that chaos.
Right, so taking a quick look here, you're getting a bird's eye view of the entire worksheet you'll be mastering today. I know, it might seem like a lot of information to take in right now, but honestly, don't sweat it. We are going to break this down section by section, step by step, until this whole framework basically becomes second nature to you.
Okay, let's jump right into part one. What is a risk control matrix?
What is an RCM? Linking risks to controls. As your instructor, I want you to start thinking of this matrix as a bridge, A bridge between the specific dangers an organization faces and the shields actually protecting it.
Let's break this down a bit. First, it's a tool that links risks to their corresponding controls. Think of a bank, for example. The risk is that a hacker gains access to customer accounts, right? Well, the corresponding control is multi-factor authentication. The RCM explicitly ties that specific danger to that specific safeguard right there on paper. Second, it helps auditors identify, evaluate, and document key risks and controls. Because as auditors, we don't just guess. We systematically walk through a department, say a massive warehouse, and document the risk of inventory theft, and then evaluate if the security cameras and badge scanners are actually sufficient. And third, it ensures that there are effective controls in place to mitigate significant risks. Because it is not enough to just have a control, it has to actually work. If the risk is a catastrophic server failure, sure, a weekly backup is a control, but the RCM forces us to ask, is that control effective enough to truly mitigate the risk?
Moving right along to part two, key components of a risk control matrix.
Section 2, Key Components of an RCM, breaking down the matrix elements. We are about to look under the hood here, folks. Understanding how to fill out each of these columns is absolutely vital for your toolkit. Without these components, you just have a simple list, but with them, you have a highly actionable auditing mechanism.
Let's walk through this matrix structure together, row by row. First up is risk, where we identify the potential risks. Out in the field, this literally just means asking, hey, what could go wrong here? It could be anything from a major data leak to a physical safety hazard on a factory floor. Next, we have control. Here, we list the controls designed to mitigate those risks. This is the how do we stop it phase. If the risk is a fire, the control is your sprinkler system and smoke alarms. Then comes the control objective. This clarifies what the controls aim to achieve. What is the actual goal here? It isn't just have a sprinkler. The objective is to extinguish a localized fire before it spreads, minimizing damage and preventing loss of life. Makes total sense, right? Finally, testing procedure. This outlines how the controls will be tested and evaluated. And this is where you, the auditor, really shine. You don't just take their word that the sprinkler works. Your testing procedure might be to physically review the latest inspection tags and maintenance logs to actually prove it's functional.
All right, let's look at part 3, a simple example of a risk control matrix.
Section 3, Simple Example of an RCM, applying the components in practice. I am super excited for this part, because this is where all that theory becomes reality in a real-world scenario. This is exactly the kind of thing you'll be doing at your desk during an actual audit engagement.
This perfectly illustrates the whole concept in action. Let's look at the first row, risk. Here we have unauthorized cash payments. Imagine a rogue employee realizing that petty cash or outgoing vendor wires aren't being closely monitored, so they decide to start skimming money into a fake account. That is a huge risk. Now row 2, control. Proper approval needed for cash disbursements. To stop that rogue employee dead in their tracks, the company implements a hard rule. Any cash payment over $500 requires a manager's signature. Moving to row 3, control objective. Ensure all cash payments are authorized. See, the goal isn't just to collect a bunch of signatures, it's to build an environment where theft via unauthorized payment is practically impossible. And lastly, row 4, testing procedure. Review sample of cash payments for proper approval signatures. As an auditor, you'd walk in, ask for, say, 50 random cash disbursement receipts from the last quarter, and meticulously check if the manager's signature is actually on every single one of them. Because if it's missing, well, the control has failed.
Let's transition over to Part 4, Benefits of Using a Risk Control Matrix.
Section 4, Benefits of Using an RCM. Why internal auditors rely on this tool. So we know what it is and we know how to build it, but why do we actually do it? Why do top-tier risk management professionals absolutely swear by this document? Let's take a look at the immense advantages.
Let's look at the facts here. First, it provides a clear and structured approach to risk management. Think about it. Instead of 100 random sticky notes and vague email chains about security, you get a single, unified, undeniable roadmap of the company's entire risk landscape. Second, it identifies gaps where controls are missing or inadequate. And this is just massive. Imagine mapping out the matrix and suddenly realizing a critical accounting process has zero secondary review. Discovering that gap on paper could literally save a company from $1 million financial disaster before it even happens. Third, it improves audit efficiency by focusing on high-risk areas. Let's face it, you don't have infinite time. The matrix highlights exactly where the biggest dangers are hiding, so you can dedicate your hours there rather than wasting time auditing low-priority items. Finally, it enhances communication of risks and controls to management. When you walk into the CEO's office, you aren't just giving them a vague feeling of worry. You hand them the matrix. It perfectly translates complex audit findings into clear, business-focused data that they can act on immediately.
And that brings us to our key takeaway. Section 5, the key takeaway. Essential tool for systematic evaluation. Listen closely because if you remember absolutely nothing else from today's lesson, this is the overarching concept you simply must engrave in your mind, both for your upcoming exams and for the rest of your career as a world-class auditor.
Here it is. The Risk Control Matrix, or RCM, is an essential tool for internal auditors, helping to systematically identify, evaluate, and test key risks and controls. Just let the gravity of that importance sink in for a second. Using an RCM isn't just optional, it is absolutely essential. It really is the bedrock foundation of systematic evaluation.
So, I'll leave you with this question. How will you implement an RCM in your next internal audit? Seriously, think about the processes in your own work right now. Where's the chaos that desperately needs some order? I want to thank you all so much for joining me for day 16 of our internal auditing journey on this explainer. I challenge you to take this structured framework and apply it immediately in the real world. Keep learning, keep auditing, and I will see you in the next lesson.